Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for
Taking a
having
while,
me.
but we finally got you.
Yeah. Well, Pink wasn't playing tonight, so I had to come here.
Thanks, buddy.
Old story.
All right. Let's go back. I know you had a history at IBM. I want to take us on this journey till we get to the point where we got this guy that's throwing checks around and buying Teslas and.
All right. So I'm the world's worst entrepreneur. Really bad. So I went to university. Chose the easiest possible subjects like meteorology to get through, got my 100 points, skipped my last exam because I figured I had my 100 points, so I didn't bother going to the last exam, and got the first job that I got a lead onto. I went to IBM and got into IBM somehow.
What were you studying? Meteorology?
Computer science, and I had to pad it with something, so I padded it with meteorology. Yeah. I cannot forecast the weather, and I can't code either, so go figure. So it goes to show you have to be smart to be an entrepreneur. So then I went to IBM, worked there for 6 years, and for some reason, it was fantastic. IBM in the 80s, before most of you were born, was like working for Apple today. It was just cool. It was amazing. And I thought I couldn't imagine myself working anywhere else for the rest of my life. And somehow in year 6, so I was about 25, 26, 27, something in that range, I got this, what I call entrepreneurial seizure. I suddenly got this desire, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And spent the next 4 years working out how to do it. I was miserable. I was working at the best place in the world, and suddenly I was miserable. And I eventually took the hard way, I took the really brave way out. I went from IBM to IDB. Who's ever worked at IDB? That's in Dad's business. Very embarrassing, okay? Thankfully, the business went broke very soon after. So, thankfully.
Your dad's probably not happy about it.
He wasn't happy about it. He was also sick at the time. So what I was forced to do was actually to learn how to become an entrepreneur, because all I had was a customer list. I restarted the company. It was a finance company. And I went to a bank and convinced the bank, one of the 4 major banks, might be in this building even, to give me $2.5 million unsecured. And they did. And I restarted this finance company from scratch. And so I trundled along with that for a few years and started another business on the side. And in about 1998, so I've been working in this, really it was a small business. One side was making about $5,000 a month. The other business was losing about $5,000 a month. Net effect was I was the lowest paid employee in my own company. So I cut my salary in half leaving IBM and didn't raise it for 10 years. And then in about 1998, I did something that changed my life completely.
Before that, let me stop you there. The IBM, right? Why did you have this entrepreneurial seizure?
It was a seizure. How do I know?
But all right, but you know, like we had.
If I knew it was going to be a seizure, I would have gone to the doctor and prevented it, or taken aspirin or something ahead of time. Thin my blood, you know.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur is hard. You're crazy.
But what was it? Was it just like we had Kogan up here? He said he worked for Novell or something. And it was the same thing. Everything was a process. 1.13, 1.14. Was that what kind of?
No, because IBM was very entrepreneurial. I got to do amazing projects.
All right, forget it.
Keep going. No, it was nothing to do with the company.
Yeah.
Honestly, it'd be like leaving Apple to go start your own business. You're probably going to be an instant millionaire working for Apple today. Why would you go?
Was there guys dropping out of IBM doing their own startups?
No. And in fact, they had their first ever round of redundancies 6 months before I finally decided to leave, and I didn't take my redundancy. So I left IBM with zero, nothing. So it was no thought, it just happened. So my whole life has basically just happened.
Yeah. So how do you secure $2.5 million from?
I don't know, it was a miracle. I was desperate. Yeah. Went to the bank and just with my accountant and I just put a business plan up and had a lot of fronts. Sometimes you just have to sell yourself. Yeah. And I guess I sold myself.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't happen today, right? It's impossible.
No, it's impossible. But I think the equivalent today would be to go get a VC to give you $2.5 million as an early stage startup. Clearly, it does happen from time to time.
And the plan was this finance business?
Yeah, that was my original business. And I started another business on the side, and that's the one that I took to the USA and eventually sold to a public company.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so that was just an outsourcing business, a services business. And I discovered very quickly that some services businesses have no break-even points. So as I grew the business, I lost more money. And that's because I had to put more staff on telephones. So there was a large help desk component. And in the year 2000, when this thing called the Y2K bug came out, I realized I had to write new software. and I found this thing called the internet, and I internet enabled this business, and suddenly, miraculously, unexpectedly, I made money, a shitload of money, because I quadrupled the business and didn't have any staff, because this internet thing saved me from having to phone and fax everybody. It was great. Well, this is 15 years ago.
Well, the call center thing, what was the service that you were offering? What was the opportunity?
Very boring. It was for large companies like this one perhaps. They have drivers drive around in company cars. They crash them all the time, and they have no one to call except somebody in the company who doesn't know how to handle car crashes.
Like
so we acted,
sales field?
No, we were more like the claims department of the insurance company without carrying the insurance risk. So it was just a fee for service.
Tell me about,
really boring stuff, right? We're going to get to good stuff soon, I promise.
No. So you take a shot at this internet business. What was that, and why did you do that?
No, it was just a way to leverage our business.
So you're taking the same
service, but we took a lot of labour out. So we became, there were no SaaS businesses in those days, but if there were, we were probably one of the first, in that we were probably half SaaS, half labour-based. But we became very profitable very quickly at that point.
You were kind of doing this to help NAB?
Well, people like NAB, yeah. Large companies. So, but the problem was every single one of our sales were enterprise sales. So it would take 18 months to sign a client up, and I sat down in 98 and sort of did the numbers, and I realised I wanted to sell my business one day for $5 million. That was my number, $5 million. So I worked backwards, and this all happened in 98, worked backwards. I said to sell a business for $5 million, you probably need about 1/3 of that in profit unless you're really lucky. So that's about, or maybe a fifth of that. So that was somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million a year in profit. I was making, I think, like 20 grand at that time. So I did the numbers on how many clients I would need, and I realised I needed every single company in Australia as my clients to make that $1 million profit or $1.5 million profit. And I said, it's not going to work. So I picked my whole family up and we moved to the USA.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of startups today, right? Just not doing simple mathematics like that.
That was back of the envelope stuff, was completely life-changing. Because had I not done that, I would not be here. I'd still be sitting in an office somewhere, churning out transactions and still earning 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
All my staff would be well paid though.
Yeah. So you go to the US. You're online at this point. What happens there? What do you start to scale?
Yeah, so I figured the US is obviously a huge market. I'll do the same thing I'm doing in Australia. I didn't lose my Australian business. I put a manager in. I thought that'd be a sure way to lose my business because no business can run without me. It actually quadrupled in size as soon as I left. So it goes to show that you're not important in your own business. It's the best thing I ever did. And the guy had no training because the guy I did hire took a better job 6 weeks before I left, so I was sure my Australian business was gone. So it goes to show there's no IP in businesses at your level. Get good people. I figured that if I went to the USA, I didn't want to start from scratch signing up individual clients. I knew that was just a long road. So I thought, what's the way to go faster? And I decided I could have done venture capital, but that wasn't really a thing in those days. So I chose joint ventures. So I looked around for a large company that already had my types of clients as their clients that I could offer complementary services to, and that I decided was a leasing company. So I found the third largest leasing company in the USA, and I did a joint venture with them to launch my product into their marketplace, and we were profitable in year one. We made $1 million profit in year one.
Well, how does that look? How does this
Very good, thank you.
No. Well, like it's the same thing with guys going to the US trying to hit it big time. Some of them do that before they even conquer Australia. What does that look like? You still got big set of balls on you going into this meeting with one of these major companies. I imagine Americans were cockier than ever at that point. How do you get that deal across?
Well, I had a customer relationship with them in Australia, so it's always good to have some sort of relationship. But they look at Australians as as a sales manager there, director there, who actually became CEO, said he was he'd been a high school quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So you can just imagine this guy, right? Comes in, looks at me, and he says, Australia is smaller in terms of population, is smaller than Texas. What have you got to offer me? That was like the first meeting, really nice. So Americans can have that attitude. I told them I thought that they were losing money in the business they were operating, that section of the business. They told me to go away, but they made them do some internal benchmarking. And I got a phone call a month later. They said, you're right, we're losing money in the business. Can you help us fix it? So it was just relationships. You have to go, knock on a few doors, kiss a few frogs, and find some link to the person you need to get to and get some sort of warm introduction. And it's exactly the same today if you're going for angel funding or VC funding. You have to find a warm introduction. There's always going to be a link there somewhere if you look hard enough.
Yeah, I mean, we do, so me and my brother, we've got a sales business pretty much. I love those guys that tell us they come across as real assholes to start, because they're always, most of the time, they're the best customer. If you can win those hard ones over.
Yep. And I mean, their CEO, when I eventually came, when he signed the contract, he was a big bear. You got no idea how big this guy was. He came up and gave me a bear hug. He was so happy.
So, and then
as soon as I signed the contract, I looked for an acquirer.
Right.
Because if you win one contract, you can lose one contract. And you should not base your business on one contract. So the minute I did that, I looked for an acquirer. And I already knew who I wanted my acquirer to be. It was an English company. And I started the process. And 18 months later, they bought both my Australian business and my US business. And I came back here and decided I'd try and spend my money as quickly as possible on startups.
You get that relationship with the third largest leasing company in the US. Then you look, how do you get on the radar of these guys in the UK? I guess it's a lot of the guys, the people here, they dream, they go, all right, I want to build this business up, and then I want to, make 400 times EBITDA as we talk to the...
Embarrassingly, I actually emailed the CEO, which I say never to do.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to be in the UK on this date. I wasn't going to be. I would go whatever date he wanted to see me. And he said, sure, come on down. And I pitched him, and he offered me some money for my business on the spot, but I hadn't quite signed the US contract at that stage. So I delayed as long as possible. And as I said, as soon as the US contract was signed, I went back to see him, and the valuation went way up.
Nice. So this is, what time frame are we talking at this point?
Mid-2006.
Mid-2006.
So I moved to the US in 2004, so literally within 2 years I'd sold the businesses.
Nice. Next, what happened next? This is the journey.
It was great because once I made the decision that I wanted to sell, I was actually, like everything in an entrepreneur is, I was in a hurry to do it. My mind again switched. I was no longer entrepreneurial mode. I now wanted to be retired really quickly.
Yep.
So I was fortunate that once the deal settled, I was still living in the US, and I basically just took a year off and did absolutely nothing. And then we moved back to Australia because we figured all our families back here. So we all moved back to Australia. I did nothing for another year here. And then I decided that I wanted to become a VC, but I didn't want to lose much money. So I thought, how can I lose the least amount of money possible being a VC? I know I'll invest in internet startups. Because if I lose money, it's probably 50 or 100K a pop. Maybe I can lose 5 or 10 of those and not cry too much.
Where did you get the idea? Were you in San Francisco when you were doing this business?
Back. I started seeding a couple of small internet ideas in San Francisco, but they were more my ideas that I got people to build for me. And we didn't even launch them. I had no idea how to do a startup. I knew nothing, how to build one, how to launch one, nothing.
Yep.
So I built a couple of things and didn't even launch them. So I didn't know what to do next.
Yep.
That's why these events are so good.
Well, was it the idea for becoming a venture capitalist? Was that something that kind of came across? Were you in San Francisco and New York? Or
No.
It would have been relatively...
It was one of the things on my life plan to do at the time when I worked out how much money I needed to retire on, that $5 million number. Part of it was so I could spend $1 million on startups. I wanted to be a VC already of some sort. And I didn't know what VC meant, but investing in a bunch of startups years before I sold.
What were the first ones that you did?
The very first one I did was, it's embarrassing, it was called O-Booth.
We like this. We like failures here because there's a lot of learning. Yeah.
It was O-Booth, and it was going to be sort of a marketplace where you could, like a cross between eBay and Etsy, and sort of a marketing site and a social network. So it was like everything you have now in 4 different businesses, it was all of that together.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, I found 2 guys who were working for Sears, and I just had this thing in my head that I wanted to build it in Ruby on Rails. I didn't know why. It just sounded hot to me. So I found these two guys who were working, they were the senior sort of developers in Sears, and they built this thing part-time. They loved it so much that they quit and started their own agency, and they're going brilliantly. They've got this big Ruby on Rails agency in San Francisco, and they're going great guns. So I guess thanks to me, they've got their own business. I lost money. They're happy.
Well, is that a matter of like, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of putting too many features in, right?
Classic. There were three probably major mistakes in that one. One is I built every single possible feature that anybody could ever not want from day one. Two is I didn't speak to a single possible customer to see if they would want any feature, let alone all the features. And number two, I built the thing before we had any, quasi-traction. So 3 reasonable mistakes.
But live and learn?
It didn't cost me anything. They built it.
Right. So you're a good salesman.
Yeah, well, they built it, so it cost me some time and effort, but not that much money. Second one's called College Blurbs. It was meant to be like a classified ads marketplace, like a mini Craigslist for colleges, because I felt the problem with Craigslist and classifieds is that we don't want to do transactions online because you've got to be close to each other to close the transaction, and we probably just will hand each other cash. Yeah. So I thought, what's a good closed community? It's colleges. And what was
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I think it was a great concept, but we'll never execute it.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I wanted to do to differentiate it was I wanted to put like an events page on it so that college students would come every day, look at events around the campus, and then see the classified ads in there. So it's kind of a convoluted way. I call that mining uranium on the moon. And some of you might be doing that. And I'll give you an example, right? We all agree that uranium is valuable. And if you can mine uranium, you're probably going to make a lot of money. The problem is this uranium is on the moon. So in order to get there to mine it, you actually have to design and build a rocket ship to get you to the moon. So it's kind of like 2 startups built in one, one to get you the second one. Or if you play pool, it's kind of like getting the cue ball into the black ball to hit the pink ball on the green in the pot. It just doesn't happen, right? So I've learnt with startups, you've got to have very direct shots. So what I should have just done was either a classified site or just an event site.
So do you think that really comes down to like...
Again, I didn't launch it.
Didn't launch it?
No, because I couldn't find a marketing guy to launch it for me. I was lazy. I didn't want to do it myself. But I'm still lazy. I love to do startups. I just don't want to do it myself anymore. It's hard work.
Take out the hard work.
Yeah.
And what do you think that was like? Probably a matter of trying to communicate too much.
Yeah, I just wasn't really focused and didn't have I didn't have a launch plan again. So I had this site, build it, no launch plan. So I learned something from my son. My son is 20 years old, just deferred third year university to do his own startup, got into 500 startups, came back from that, and he said to me he'll never do another startup again where he hasn't sorted out distribution first. So that's it. It's genius, right? If you're going to build a startup or anything, know how you're going to sell it, know there's a customer before you build anything. Well, I've always done the reverse, so that's bad.
So on your son, this is a true story. So Startup Grind, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, offers so many scholarships to go to the Startup Grind conference. And your son won one of the scholarships. Part of the condition of the scholarship was that he had to write a blog post for the Startup Grind thing. It was the one thing that you had to do. Sure enough, your son's one was like the blog post starts like, I have to write this blog post. I didn't really want to write the blog post. We're going to write this blog post. So
laziness runs in my family.
Yes.
Good startup founders are lazy.
So what? So you go to the trouble. Sounds like you like building things.
Yeah. So my original idea was to start a think tank, essentially, launch 4 or 5, maybe 10 startups, 50 grand each, get a team, keep 80% of the equity for myself because that's only fair. 20% for the unpaid founders. I mean, really. Yeah. And one of them will be successful. Thankfully, I met my co-founder at Angelcube, and he said, no, let's do this Y Combinator style thing, but in Melbourne. So, I mean, does everyone here know what Y Combinator is? So this is like, so Y Combinator started in 2006, Techstars around the same time, and we wanted to be the first one in Melbourne, and I thought that was a brilliant idea because it meant I could have invest in more startups, and invest a lot less of my own money. I got to take other people's money. Bingo.
Yep.
And that was the idea for Angelcube. And so that's basically what I spent most of my time on the last few years.
For the people that don't know, can you just give a brief overview of what an accelerator program is?
Okay, so an accelerator is exactly what it says. It's a way to get startups to move from idea to traction much quicker than you could probably do it on your own. And we don't do it by coursework. So our philosophy is anything you want to know about startups is available online. If you're a great founder, you can go find it, read it, right? So the guy who created the idea of the Lean Startup, Steve Blank, all of his coursework when he teaches his Stanford course on startups, on Lean Startups, is online. Eric Ries wrote the book on Lean Startup. It's available, right? So we don't teach anything. So Angelcube, I guess, is more about putting a bunch of startups together, putting them under some sort of artificial pressure to meet deadlines, self-imposed, bring a bunch of mentors in, but when we say mentors, I mean people who have had and sold their own startups. So they kind of been there, done that. You know, I'm a dinosaur, I mean real people, like the people that started retail, me not, and, you know, and 99 Designs. And connections, obviously introduced into our network of investors around the world.
So three-month program, if we get it right?
15-week program this year.
15-week, yep. It used to be 20 grand per startup. Now I remember there being a quote, something along the lines of, you know that the startup ecosystem in Melbourne is starting to mature.
Yep, absolutely.
Bumped it up to 40 grand.
Yeah, so we invest $40,000 in each startup. So the idea is we don't take any fees. We invest in the startups and we gain if the founders gain. So we take founders' equity, so we have no special powers other than the right of veto if you go and, in fact, Nathan and Amir, our program manager, made me remove more clauses from our contract this year. We've probably got the most founder-friendly accelerator contract in the entire planet.
And it's basically, the idea is if you put, like, you pick about 10 teams, and there's something about creating a bit of competition between the guys that helps, like, 1 or 2 or 3 stand out, right? It's still a very risky business. 7 out of 10 go nowhere, right?
Well, I mean, in the general marketplace, if you look at the startup life cycle, there's no really good stats on the Australian marketplace. But if you look at the US, for example, you know, there wouldn't be 1 in 100 startups that would probably succeed. Maybe 1 in 50 or 20 would raise money, and you know, most startups go to business within 12 months. If you look at the accelerator programs in the US, like Techstars, about 75% of the startups are still in business 4 years later. Over 50% raise money, and it was before they had the guaranteed follow-on funding that they have. And we're finding very much the same thing with Angelcube. Very low sort of failure rate in terms of startups closing down, and more than 50% of Angelcube startups raise money either here or in the USA within 3 to 6 months of completing the program, which is, I think, is, you know, massively ahead of, and StartMate in Sydney is finding similar stats as well. So there's some sort of magic that happens inside an accelerator program. Is it because we're fantastic mentors? Maybe. Is it because the program's fantastic? Maybe. Is it because the startups we choose are fantastic? Maybe. Is it because the investors we linked them to? Maybe. I think it's just a combination of all of those things. It's basically an ecosystem within an ecosystem.
Well, if you go back to the very first one, can you explain setting this up as this is really a startup?
Yep.
How does that look? I mean, Y Combinator is very kind of secretive about their stuff. How did you say, well, let's put this program together. We want to, you know, some really successful teams to come out of this thing. How do you put that together?
So when we started, remember this is mid 2011. We didn't have a lot of startup events. I don't know when did you guys start?
2.5, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
So there were no startup grind events. There was no startup Vic. There was a lean startup group already.
But 10 people were coming or something.
No, it was still, you know, like 100 odd people. Which was interesting. It was good signs. So we knew there was an underground, but the Melbourne startup scene was really that largely underground. And we were an experiment. We had no idea if there was a single startup that would apply to a program like Angelcube in Melbourne. We had no idea. So we treated ourselves as a startup. So we thought, how do we do a minimal viable product of Angelcube? So we thought we'll just run 4 startups in our first program and see how it goes and try and raise $500,000 just to see if we can raise money. So we made 1 cold call on Guy King and Bevan from Retail Me Not. We'd never met them before, and they both said, yep, we're in. And I put some money in, and that was our round closed. It was like that, bang. It was like astoundingly easy that we thought, oh, well, money's always going to be easy to raise. It took us 2 years to raise another round, right? So the first one's, it's like gambling, right? You go to the casino for the first time, you're always going to pull off a small jackpot just to suck you in, right? That's how the big guy works, I think. And then it's never going to happen again. So kind of what happened to us. So we got going, we did 4 startups, none of them were still in business. We didn't know how to select startups. We were looking for ideas, not so much for people. We had a couple of really good entrepreneurs in that group, and one guy ran off with our money, went surfing. So, you know, that's what you do, right? You give someone 20K, they go surfing, why not? So that was our first year. But what was really surprising was we didn't know if there was a single startup in Melbourne. We reached out to the Fin Review and Cold, and they printed a full-page article on us. We couldn't believe it. Then BRW picked that up from the Fin Review, basically copied the article, and we had 150 startups apply. It was like crazy, 150 startups apply. But we weren't really putting our message out what we were looking for. We were looking for balanced teams. We were looking for a tech and a business sort of matching thing. We got a lot of solo founders applying, so we hadn't got the message out, but we still found 20 that we wanted to interview in the pitch day. And in those days, we got the 20 to actually come in and do a pitch to us. And we realised like later, after that year and the year after, that we're there to teach them how to pitch. So what's the point of having them pitch to us? So, but we ran anyway, and it was exciting and great. We realised there's a depth of interest in Melbourne, and we just rolled on from there.
So you had your a VC, you were back in these Melbourne startups.
I'm a small time VC. That's
I know, that's the Twitter handle.
Small time VC.
Small time VC. But aside from from being a VC and seeing the potential financial gain from investing in one of these guys and them taking off, can I put your well, I don't know how I'm asking this question, but can you tell me about some of the successes? I know LifeX. I did the launch 48 with what's his name? Who's the guy? Who's the founder?
Phil?
Yeah, Phil.
First of all, like with startups, there's no success until the startup has a liquidity event, right? So everything until then is vanity metrics. Do you know the difference between metrics and vanity metrics? Yeah. Vanity metrics are numbers that make you look good, like page views or numbers of users or something like that. A real metric is something that actually represents the value to your business. For example, profit. If you're not making profit, then maybe revenue. If you're not making revenue, then maybe it is user growth, but you've got a model that you can get to eventually that will give you revenue, and so on back down the chain. So I can't remember where we're at with that. Yeah, so for us, for Angelcube, we've had no exits yet, but that's, to be fair, the average time to exit is about 4 years. We've only just been going for 4 years.
So do you think, that's ultimately the success for a
Obviously,
VC, right?
Yeah.
So, but it must be great to see guys like LifeX, CoinJar.
Yeah.
Who else we got? Kickfolio, that's called something else now.
App.io. So, from so this is the kind of interesting conflict that we have running as a fund and running Angelcube as a person running it. I view Angelcube as a social enterprise in that my time is free. I've never charged for my time, nor do I intend to. But we also run a fund that we take investment money in, and that has to deliver a long-term return for the investor. Obviously, I'm an investor in the fund, so I expect a return one day for that. So we kind of got this interesting discipline between having a really financial imperative, which is totally aligned with our startups because the fund won't make any return unless they do. But this social enterprise that, like Nathan, who's the other co-founder, anyone know Inspire 9? So Nathan's the founder of Inspire 9. So I found Nathan and got together with him to do Angelcube. Neither of us draw salaries from Angelcube. So from that point of view, it's like a social enterprise. So it'll only be when one. So it's, of course, yes, it warms the cockles of our heart to see entrepreneurs being successful. That's what we're there for. So the quasi metric is if they raise money. It's nice to see that on that metric that LifeX is way out in front. They've raised, a Series A, Series B, and I think the Sequoia Capital one counts as perhaps a Series C.
Well, do you want to tell that story about LifeX because it's quite an interesting one?
Am I on camera? Will Phil see this?
Yeah.
I'll tell you the real story.
The real story, and I know that he actually had another startup that was like videos for Facebook or something that was falling flat. And,
So Phil applied to Angelcube, and please Phil, don't watch this. And he broke every single rule. So he came to Angelcube and he said, I don't have a pitch. And this is back when we were still asking for pitches, right? I don't have a pitch. I don't have a technical co-founder. And I came up with this idea of 48 hours ago. We go, okay, there's a panel of 5 of us. So we're talking about Lenny Mayo from 99 Designs, Guy King from Retail Me Not, Scott Handsacker from Startup Vic, myself and Nathan. And he sits there, Facebook on TV. Da 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 da. And we're all going, okay, let's be nice to this guy and get him out of here really quickly. And of course he went through this process about what it entailed, and it was a stupid idea, and he knows it's a stupid idea now. But at the end of it, it's like a voting process. Like nobody obviously voted for that particular idea out of the 20 in the day, and we're trying to whittle it down to like 10 to do subsequent interviews on. And Nathan said to me, he said, look, we need one, can't use the word, he said, we need one crazy in the group. It's literally what he said. And we thought we're only spending $20,000 and we're going to do it 50 times in 4 years. Why not have an outlier? And that's really the way to do it. He was clearly, he had a design spark to him, right? He had a design spark. And let me tell you, I will back anything. And it's on record, Phil. I will back anything that Phil does now, because he's a type of designer who can create an idea and he loves to execute. By execute, I mean bring product to market. And it just wasn't the product he came to Angelcube with. It was like 3 iterations down the track.
But it did happen in Angelcube, right?
Happened concurrently with Angelcube. So this was a side project for him. As happens with look at Magic. Does anyone know what Magic is? Yeah. So Magic is a San Francisco startup where you text and you say, I want something, anything. I want a flight book, I want a meal, I want a ride on the elephant, and they will do it for you. They will go out and get it, mark the price up, and get it done for you. And it's kind of like it was a side project for a Y Combinator.
But you have a piece in LifeX, right?
Yeah.
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 So tell the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. So he comes up with a light bulb.
We did a deal though.
Yeah, go on.
So we did a deal to do the LifeX thing, and we'll often do that. That it's kind of an Angelcube project, kind of not. So we did a deal that we converted our equity at a certain price to a slightly different price. That meant a lower share in the company, but we're very, very happy.
But so the story is, after that,
we're very happy, thank you.
Yeah. No, so he comes up with a light bulb.
Extremely happy.
A light bulb that
if Google buys them, we're really, really happy.
That's the plan, right?
Yeah. Well, Google, please buy them.
He comes up with a light bulb that is a LED light bulb that can.
I thought it was a stupid idea, okay?
Right.
And I thought a hardware idea, you're crazy. You got this amazing software idea, the better one than Facebook on TV. It pivoted to something I became lead investor in. He actually had $350,000 before he finished Angelcube, of which I put in the first 50, that he gave back to investors to do the hardware idea. I thought, you got a funded software business and you're giving it back to do a hardware business? You got rocks in your head. Well, I've got rocks in my head because he was right, I was wrong.
Yep. So the story goes, he comes up with this light bulb. You can change the colors from the app, right? I think it was like the fastest growing Kickstarter there was ever at the time. Then he goes to the US with the product, raises $12 million.
Well, it wasn't overnight.
No, I know it wasn't. Well, for this, we were on the clock.
What he managed to do was get a Kickstarter project, which was essentially LifeX is a LED light bulb with 2 chips in it, a mesh chip, so they all talk to each other, and a Wi-Fi chip. It still stands alone as a product. And it's an amazing product, right? It's probably the best of its type in the world. And he managed to get that to production in China. I mean, he got this product's everywhere. This is like starting GE from scratch. Almost impossible, but Phil did it. So once he got the product up and going, got some distribution, I think it's in all the Best Buy stores in America, Harvey Norman here, sold online, had pre-sales of 1.3 million on Kickstarter before they shut it down. Then I think some pre-sales off his own website, then some angel investment, which was very significant but confidential. He then subsequently took it to the USA and they raised exactly that. I think it was 12 million from Sequoia Capital.
Amazing. So
to grow the business.
And there's I want to talk about another couple of outliers, I guess is the right word, and then talk about what's next for you, and then I'll get into some of these questions. CoinJar was another big one. Are they still in Australia?
They're in Europe.
Europe now, yeah. So that's Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin and some stuff I don't understand.
Yeah, so that's exactly right? I mean,
I got no idea what they do.
So how do they get that through? I mean,
well, first of all, and this represents the change in Angelcube. So far, I think in the last couple of years, about 50% of the startups have changed their ideas after joining Angelcube, either slightly or a lot. So Asher, who's one of the founders of CoinJar, came with some idea about social networking over lunches for people attending conferences. After I stuck my fingers down my throat with excitement over that one, we let him come into Angelcube and we said, you're not doing that idea.
Yeah.
And they said, if you want to come in. And on day one, the third person, so it was opening day,
yeah.
And the third person turns up. It's this young guy with white glasses, still at uni, and his name is Ryan, and they say, we're doing Bitcoin. I said, I got no idea what Bitcoin is, but thank you. Anyway, it turns out that Ryan had created one of the first Bitcoin exchanges in the world, based in Singapore, and had sold it for like $250,000 before he turned 17. So this is a guy who knew Bitcoin. And so they launched this Bitcoin startup, and I couldn't be happier. Other than if they IPO, then I'll be even happier.
Yeah, but they went to London or something because the government regulation here.
Yeah, I mean, Australia is, look, Bitcoin is difficult everywhere, right? Governments are struggling to catch up with Bitcoin as a currency. So, but they had like the lowest, their first product was a Bitcoin wallet, and it was like the lowest price wallet in Australia. So it was like a 1% transaction fee to put money in and out when everyone else was charging like 3% or 8% or whatever.
So I'll give NAB a quick plug because I know they were the only bank that would back them because the other banks are scared by Bitcoin and what it can do. So that's pretty cool stuff.
So NAB are great supporters of transaction-based startups. So like I think they help Pin and a whole bunch of Stripe. Yeah. Good on you, NAB. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know who's from NAB here, but yeah, and they're the only ones that do every single currency and you can land in that currency. So I don't know. It's terrible way I was trying to sell it for them.
Yes, they do every single currency that you can land in that currency.
That's it. That's exactly right. I'll take a couple of questions and what's the best way, I guess, to become investor ready?
Traction. So I'm chairman of this other organisation called Investors Org. If you've heard of it, I'm doing a bad job.
Want to talk about that too? Yeah.
Yeah, but that was. I felt that the two problems in the Melbourne market, which is the only market I really care about, I mean Australia obviously, but Melbourne, I could touch, see and feel, was that there wasn't enough activity at the bottom of startups, and I think Angelcube, Inspire 9, Start Grind, Start Vic has really, there's a lot of, well you can see there's a lot of interest in startups in Melbourne. But one of the big problems with startups is access to capital, right? They've all got to start, but how do we raise money for them? So I thought, well, where do you go to get money for startups from? You can go to VCs, there aren't enough of them, and the ones that there are going up and upstream, not early stage enough. Banks won't typically lend to startups. Angel investors are few and far between. So I thought, why not go to rich people and convince them that investing in startups is actually a sensible portfolio management theory. So if I can convince the richest person in Australia to put a sensible 0.5% of this portfolio into a high growth asset like startups, that would probably triple or quadruple the whole startup ecosystem in one person. So I started this organisation called Investors Org. It's a pure non-profit. I started with 2 other people, and we've held a whole series of events, and the idea is that we just try and get rich people into a room. I'm talking about top echelon, who don't typically invest in startups, mix them with a bunch of rich people who made their money from startups, and bring VCs and speakers from overseas to come and ignite and excite us. There's no membership fees, we make no revenue. PwC kindly sponsors us. I hope that's Deloitte, sorry.
Yeah,
PwC
like these guys.
Has been very good at sponsoring us. And we've brought people out like Dave McClure came out, Jonathan Teo came out, and you probably don't know who Jonathan Teo is, but first investor in Snapchat. Instagram, they were the firm he worked for, they were the only investors in Instagram. Twitter literally IPO'd while I was having breakfast with him after speaking. He was looking at his phone and realising how rich he was. He's missed his social network guy, consumer app guy. But anyway, so I brought all this bunch of people. So Dave McClure said to me, and it's really, I tweeted this out about 3 months ago. He said, here's a good startup pitch. I have this traction, and I've got that traction because I solved this problem, and the market is really this big. And by the way, this is my traction, as in how much money I'm making. See ya. That's a good pitch. A bad startup pitch is, hi, my name is Adrian. You know how when you're flying, the flight attendant wants to bring you drinks, but the tray is really unsteady. Well, what I've got is a tray that fits with a glove on your hands, and the drinks are on magnetically, and we feel the market for that is really big because every single airline in the world needs it, and blah, blah. Can you see the difference?
I think somebody's pitched you that.
Yeah, this morning, actually. Yeah. I invested.
Did you?
No. So I made that up on the spot. So to answer that question, traction. Nothing sells an investor like traction. So what a good investor really wants to do is pour oil on the fire that's already burning. You've got to convince them that all you need to be successful is you've got the fire, the embers, you've got the wood assembled, right? So you've got your MVP. You've got the kindling under it, which is your first 3 customers, whatever. You've lit the flame, and you've now grown from 3 to 50 customers. You've got Melbourne nailed, and you just started in Sydney, and all you need now is a bit more oil to make it go whoosh. And that's what the investor's money is. The investor doesn't want to hear that their money is going to go to pay you wages because I haven't been eating and I really need to draw a wage now. Or, I've got to build my MVP and I need a technical person to do it. They don't want to hear all of that. A good investor just wants to give you go faster money.
Nice. If someone would like to get into angel...
I'm not a good investor, I'll give you money for anything.
If somebody would like to get into angel investing, where should they start and what kind of investment is needed?
At the psychiatrist. It's just, right? Angel investing is gambling on steroids, which is why I'm so against, in theory, crowdsourced equity funding. Right? Crowdsourced equity funding is great for the startups, more money in, does nothing for the investors unless they do 2 things. One is due diligence. So how do you do due diligence if you know nothing about startups? So if you want to become an angel investor, be a founder first. And then work with a bunch of founders, right? Learn how to do a startup from the inside out. And secondly, diversify. So I don't believe in diversification in anything I do except for startup investing. So I'm kind of scared that I've only done 10 personal investments outside of Angelcube, which is about $1 million poured on 10 startups. That's not enough statistically to guarantee me a 25% compound, which I really need for taking that sort of risk. It should be 20. Okay? So if you're investing in less than 5 startups, statistically, you've got a negative expectation, which means statistically you're going to lose money if you invest in less than 5. So if you're going to be an angel investor, work out what percentage of your portfolio, liquid assets that you've got that you should be at risk. It shouldn't be more than 5% of your portfolio, maybe 10% if you're a real gung-ho risky person. So if you've got $5 million, that's 500 grand to spend. That funds one angel startup. If you're doing 100 grand, that's only 5. You're going to lose money. You can really only afford to do 50k investments or 25k times 20. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no,
so most people don't diversify into investing in startups enough, and therefore they are straight out gambling. What does it say though when we're doing our own startup? Right, we're only investing all of our time and effort in one startup. So we really got a right to expect it's going to succeed. Probably not if you're doing it less than 5 times. So the chances are your startup is going to fail 5 times before you.
Not these guys.
No, but 1 in 5 of you might be successful.
Good. Well, let's keep it positive.
But the point is, you shouldn't stop at 1, right? So the idea is then with the startup, if you know it's going to fail, more likely than succeed, fail quickly, right? Learn the lesson, move on to the next one. Find ways to make your startup fail quickly.
Nice. Taking investment versus bootstrapping.
I bootstrapped my business and I got it global, but I used a technique to lever it up, which is joint ventures. The nice thing about that was that when you do get an exit, there's nobody to share the money with, is there?
Nice.
So it's really nice, but it's a slower road, right? So the reason why you raise money is, well, one is to de-risk yourself. So I've read somewhere that even if you've got enough money to start your own startup, don't do it if it represents more than 10% of your portfolio. Take on investors just to de-risk yourself. And the second reason, obviously, is to make yourself grow faster.
I'm going to add to that. So you hear these horror stories from time to time about picking the wrong investor or whatever. What advice do you have to people here that are looking to raise money or take it to the next level about picking the right investor and the importance of that, I guess?
Hugely important. The wrong investor will kill your business because they will have veto rights or some rights over your business. The other thing too is they may think that they know more about how to run your company than they do. But whoever the investor is, even if they're in the exact same business as yours and you're now doing a startup in that, and they've come in with 20 years experience and you're just learning, their experience stops the day they sold their own business, right? Their learnings have stopped. Time moves on, time marches on. Your learnings are just beginning. So you have to be able to filter. So if you have an investor who wants to take control, you're in big trouble.
So the advice really is to find someone that's prepared to be hands off and let you do your thing.
An investor who's prepared to let go. It's really, really hard for an entrepreneur turned investor to let go because entrepreneurs are all about doing everything. So I'm lucky I learnt my lesson by leaving my business in Australia and realising it grew because I learned to be very hands off. That switched me. And I think as an investor I'm relatively hands off.
Cool. I mean, we had Catch of the Day here last month. Same thing. He said he was very fortunate. Great. Yeah, he said very fortunate. Tiger Global, give him 150 million, whatever it was. Never had to clear a decision with them unless they were hiring a CEO.
And I can promise you he would never clear a decision if they wanted it. He'd do it anyway because he's a quintessential entrepreneur, right? Yep. Just get it done.
That's it.
Get it done.
Which Angelcube has had the most success? What does it do?
Hard to measure most success, but in terms of raising, the size of raising, amount raised, LifeX clearly.
What are some of the exciting ones that are in the? You're in a cohort right now, right?
Oh, cohort right now, yeah. Yep. So yeah, and again, this is really interesting. So we had one startup team of two that we actually took on board because they were a balanced team, and we hated the original idea was to do with shop coupons or something. Anybody who comes with a coupon site, please, come up with a different idea. It's really hard. So they came with that. Anyway, we pivoted them, and they found this product now called Curve Up, and they're solving a really narrow, simple problem. It's simply that PR agencies, when they put out press releases, find it hard to determine the reach, so they can report back to their clients of their online distribution. So not so much in Twitter or the press, but in like online blogs. So like in Startup Smart or somewhere else. So they built a tool which searches a set of URLs and delivers a report back to the PR agents, and they're finding their clients want to pay them $300, $350 a month for that. And they've already got 30 trial users and all that sort of stuff within like a couple of weeks of launching the product. That's really nice. I really like that. So I'm excited by traction.
Cool. One more question here. Why Angelcube over other incubators?
Because we're the only one.
It's helpful.
Well, if you're a Melbourne Uni graduate, you can go to MAP, and Amir, who's our program director this year, he's one of the guys who started that. We've done 31 startups, so we've got a huge network. And it's like some startups have got these things called network effects. That a network effect is something that makes stronger the more volume you have. Angelcube has got that in Melbourne, StartMate's got that in Sydney. We've got a big network of people who invest in our startups, who are happy to take meetings with them, who know who we are. So success sort of breeds success. And having a big alumni network of 31 founders who've either succeeded or failed and all put back in is great. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, every other week you hear somebody talking around Melbourne like, oh, we're going to start an accelerator.
Yeah.
Nothing's happened.
No, and look, you can start an accelerator, but the value in the accelerator, this is the problem that people have. They look at an accelerator of any sort and they say, well, they're giving me $40,000 and they're taking 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%. Is it worth it for $40,000? And the answer is no. It's not worth it for $40,000. But if you're in an accelerator for the money, you're in the wrong place. You could get 40 grand off your credit cards and still be cheaper. You're in it for the ecosystem. 40,000 is just a token. You're in it to accelerate. And it's very, very hard to start an accelerator and build that network of investors, mentors, alumni to produce the ecosystem. Yep. It's very difficult to do that.
All right, I want everyone back on your feet and another round of applause for Adrian for coming out. Thank you very much.
That's it.